This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 242. René Klein on hypnotic breakthroughs.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Welcome back to the program. It's Jason Linett here with, again, another content-packed session, this week featuring René Klein out of Germany. And you can check out his business, which is 7 Mountain Hypnosis. We're going to link to that over in the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com for the simple reason, as it's about to become clear, that website is in German. So we'll give you the direct link as well as over to renéklein.com. And René is someone that I've known of for quite some time, first interacting as he joined Hypnotic Business Systems and then seeing his interactions over in the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy Engage group as well, and just getting to know him over the years and clearly being a person that from the start was fascinated in hypnosis and looking at the opportunity to get out there and really begin to build a thriving business, understanding what it takes to create that change and really, well, as we call this episode, the hypnotic breakthroughs that are necessary in terms of our own personal life, in terms of getting out there and helping people, overcoming some perceptions in terms of paying money to actually help our business begin to grow. And plus, there's an amazing dialogue we get into at the end of this conversation, specifically around that willingness to surround yourself with people who are also already successful and, let's call it out, also willing to invest in themselves and the amazing benefits that come from thinking about your business in that perspective. We do go a little bit deeper dive briefly into the concepts of Google Ads, which I will share a piece of content that he makes available to you by heading over to renéklein.com, which was that for the Mike Mandel group. Chris Thompson actually interviewed René a couple of months ago, talking specifically about his strategies with Google Ads, which both René and Chris have graciously agreed to let that recording be available to you. You can check that out over at renéklein.com, which I pulled some pointers from as well in terms of times where I toggle on and off the paid traffic in terms of bringing in the business. And even if you're not yet doing that, I find that most people are kind of stuck in that mindset, that the game that kind of drives a lot of what I do in terms of helping other hypnotists with their business. Oh, I'm not really much of a business person. I'm more of a clinician. Well, you can't really be one without the other is the truth of it. So looking at how do we become willing to invest back into our business, that, kind of twisting the classic Michael Gerber line from E-Myth Revisited, working on your business rather than just in your business, but being also willing to spend money on your business to pull money out of your business is, I think, one of those breakthroughs that people often get into. So again, check the show notes for more on how to get in contact with René, and just a really smart guy in terms of getting out there and doing some really cool work. And for further information in terms of how to grow your own hypnotic business, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. That's where you can get the all-access pass to my hypnosis business training library. And it's everything from step-by-step tutorials, the philosophies of success, some done-for-you marketing campaigns, and really deep diving into passive income streams so you can even be earning an income as you're there working with your clients. You can check that out over at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. It's not just education, it's a thriving online community of people who are there to support you and help you to thrive. Plus, it's a library that keeps growing. This month, November 2019, I'm going to be putting some modules in there in terms of specifically the promotional strategies that I used in terms of launching Work Smart Business, my best-selling book, where in the course of that, I hopped on about 100 business podcasts, which is a pretty big number, and it was an exciting journey, which is still bringing in more book sales, more speaking opportunities, and more clients too. And I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how I got started doing that. So check out that library that continues to grow over at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And with that, let's jump directly into this week's content-packed session. Here we go, episode number 242, René Klein on hypnotic breakthroughs.
Yeah, the way I got into hypnosis was like in 2012 or 13. I can't remember exactly anymore. I had a really stressful job, and I worked in the banking industry, like the IT side and risk management side of banking. And I had like a boss who was, let's say he was not only pulling on my nerves, but those on other people as well. And I started looking into stuff to relax and get the stress out of my system before getting home. And then I tried a lot of different stuff. Then, like, I tried a yoga class, which wasn't really my cup of tea. Then I tried progressive muscle relaxation. I remember that was quite, I always slept in doing that. And for some reason, I picked up a book on NLP. I don't remember exactly why anymore. And there was a chapter on it called Hypnosis. Like the last chapter was Hypnosis. And I just remember reading the title. And I without thinking about it, I didn't think positive or negatively about it. I just closed the book there. I just put it aside because it was just not in my world at all. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, I really remember that I was waiting on the bus, and the bus came late again on my way home from work, and I was browsing through podcasts looking for NLP, and what came up was a really old episode of a podcast from Mike Mandel and Chris Thompson, and it was called like, they called it, I think it's called Brain Software, Hypnosis, NLP, and something else. And I thought, Hypnosis. Yeah, I just need something to listen to right now. I just will not listen to the hypnosis part and just overhear it, basically. Then I listened to the first episode and I thought, those guys are quite fun. And I listened to another episode, another one. And a week or 2 weeks later, I bought their download, their online academy. Yeah, and then it basically went all from there. My first live event was a big Richard Bandler event in Germany where there were 400 or 500 people, which was coined like NLP and hypnosis. Yeah, then I did the live training with Mike and Chris in 2015. And that was sometime, I knew at the second or third day, that was the time where it clicked, like a massive click in my head. And I knew, okay, not only do I theoretically understand it, but I know how.
Which is something I want to pull out of that, which of course in my little unofficial notes that I track as we're talking is I wrote the word hypnosis seeds, which is odd, but it's where this is often how even that client makes that decision to reach out to us, that there's enough little checkpoints in their environment where it pops up and then suddenly the inspiration hits to go, oh, I should look into that further. Mm-hmm. You know, that here you were looking for relaxation strategies. You were looking for stress relief strategies. I do love the aspect of falling asleep doing the PMR, which I would definitely want to come back to that conversation in terms of your approach working with clients. But where enough hints, enough, intentions were there, where then suddenly it became, yeah, I should look into this. If you could kind of define that moment where, if we want to say it was a click that occurred, even, yes, you had traveled from Germany now to Canada for the live training, but you said it was like the second day that something kind of clicked in. If you could kind of unpack that, what do you think that was?
Yeah, actually, I have the picture of that in my mind still vividly. So every evening after class, most of the students meet up in a local pub there in the area, Irish pub, and stay there for another 1 or 2 hours mostly. Some stay longer. And I was on my way home to my Airbnb apartment, and through a busy street in Toronto, which basically also which is such a huge city, it never sleeps. I'm not from such a big city in Germany. And so there was still a lot of traffic going on, a lot of people wandering around. And at one point I thought, and that wasn't even, and I was a little bit scared about myself. At one point I thought, wow, I knew deep in my heart that any person who would ask me, like, I could hypnotize them. Mm-hmm. And that was a weird feeling. It was like, I was scared about myself because I thought, holy shit, I don't want like that feeling to engulf me, and make me like an evil Superman.
Well, I forget the quote, and I think it might be a Richard Bandler quote, or it may be a paraphrase of it. And there was criticism around the phrase that, and whether it came from someone else in the community, that the people who study this stuff walk around as if they figured out the world. Mm-hmm. And that was phrased to me in a rather offensive, if not arrogant way when I first heard that. And instead, when I heard that, it was that just simple map is not the territory mindset. That, not to look at everything at the surface structure of, oh, they have an anxiety problem. Oh, they're a smoker and they can't quit. To look at everything as this flexible piece. And, it's where from one of my original stage hypnosis trainings, even Jeffrey Ronning was the one who would say, look at your participant as if, one, you're going to have more volunteers than you need. And two, you're going to be able to work with anyone who comes up on stage. The same way that walking around I'm guessing 2 or 3 in the morning in Toronto. I've been to that Irish pub, even though I've not been to the glasses. There you are walking around going, oh, for anyone who asks me about this, I know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking at the skill set. That's great.
Yeah, that was a weird feeling. And that was really, really empowering.
Well, that's really cool too, because, so often do you have this too, where the client will call you up and it's perhaps that initial consult, and one of their concerns is whether or not you can actually hypnotize them.
Yeah, that's that question probably with being stuck in hypnosis. Losing control, not so much. Maybe that's because they feel comfortable after talking with me, but being stuck and can I be hypnotized? Yeah, that's
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I say yes.
That's a much easier answer than mine.
And I say yes, and then I chuckle a bit, and then I just go into what. I've talked to them at that point, so I know a little bit about what kind of language they used, and then I go into some. If I hear that they are a more wordy person and they use more like auditory language, then I ask them about if they can dive into a book like really deeply and get into a trance-like experience. Like all the examples that we all give, like being in a cinema and watching a movie or driving a car, like one of those examples will always stick.
It's cool. So then from the experience of going through the training of it, and then kind of looking at a career where it sounds like you were relatively frustrated inside of it, what were some of the steps that you took in terms of then getting out there and actually starting to help people?
Yeah, actually, it took me quite some time to really go out there and work with people. At the first start, I had like this issue, and I can see that with other people, like in online groups now. Who should I work with? And it's not really hard to find people to work with, because you can just talk to them, and if you just tell them that you are practicing at the beginning, that you will find people. I would also say not really practice with your family and friends, like at the start at least. There's like later on you can do that. It gets easier, but if the frame of you being a hypnotist or the hypnotist, as Anthony Jackman always says, is when that frame isn't there, it's really hard.
Yeah.
So, but if you suck people into their frame, and then I started basically on the side working with friends who knew about me, and that was quite hard. The hardest client I ever had was one of my best friends, like who couldn't let go of his control issues. His fear of flying was gone like a few months later. So we worked for like an hour, and it was like doing a card game. We met for a card game, and he said, "Could you help me with fear of flying?" I said, "Yes. Do you want to do it right now?" And we are sitting there with 4 people, and the other 2 were eyes wide open and
nice
watching. And
mine was behind closed doors. You're better than I am.
Yeah, that turned out to work quite well, which I only knew 2 or 3 months later when he texted me with a funny message. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, when he texted me with a message and said, "René, you're a magician," and I only saw the preview, and I thought, is he shitting me? Because magic is a little bit a side hobby of mine, and I just wondered what he was up to now, and I opened it. It was like a really long post. I just came back from the holiday with my son, and so before that he drank himself. He always drank a lot of alcohol just to calm his nerves down, like to fly. And so that was a big success for him and for me as well. And then then I basically started to follow. I think the first advice I took from you was I think I went to a health fair. That was my first real exposure. And going to a health fair is a good exposure. What I can tell everybody now who's listening, who does that at first, like just take testimonials as much as you can, because I was hypnotizing people left and right. I was doing magnetic fingers and show hypnosis with them. So I was confident enough to do all that. But I should have just have paper or a video camera there and ask people for testimonials, because people were all saying, "Oh, that was great and wonderful," and I didn't do anything of that. I just handed out my contact data. And at another health fair I went a few months later, I did it the other way around. I just collected their data and then I called them, which is way easier, which is what I say to a lot of people when they say, what kind of business card design do you want? And business cards are nice, and it's nice to have them. They have something authoritative. But when somebody asks me for a business card, I normally say, let me just give you a number, and I can call you back.
Right. Yeah.
Back in the morning. That's the easiest. Just ask them for the number.
That's a great thing to kind of branch off of for a moment, which really, I'd say the question comes down to what are the environments you often find yourself in. So it's where I, was active in like, networking groups for a number of years. And, what I would do was I had 2 or 3 niche down specific business cards. So here was the stop smoking one, or here was the one specifically for public speaking. And that was the focus. Nowadays, most of my business is coming in by the fact that the Virginia Hypnosis website's, going on about 10 years old at this point, and referral streams are rolling in. So really, I just have those cards as something in my office that my existing clients take with them. That's the value of them right now. But you're exactly right that the value is in you controlling that conversation, you directing that follow-up rather than some sort of passive thing that they can take with them. And to be quite fair, I mean, they're pretty cheap. I kind of went a little overboard with the quality of these cards, but still, I think it worked out to be $150 for like 5,000 of them. So spend the money.
yeah, definitely. Business cards are good. It's just I always try to adjust people's mindset and switch it the other way around, because it's not that clients don't want to talk with you. If they ask you for your data, they are interested in you and obviously trust you enough for that. But they forget. I mean, they all have their daily lives, and then they put the business card somewhere else and forget to call back. And
that's a much nicer way of saying it than how I say it nowadays, which is that most people are actually looking at your information when they're in a place where they can't make a buying decision, which is a polite way of saying they're on their phone and they're on the toilet. Which a perfect example was last night. I suddenly saw someone signed up for the Stop Smoking program. And this is a guy who had talked to me on the phone 6 months ago. And it was because there was an email that went out, and then that reminded him, and that was what drove him back to the website. So, they're not always in that buying decision, toilet or not, to reach back out to us. So in terms of getting things up and running, and I love the aspect of, I think this is a point that people need to hear too, that you needed that evidence of the friend who got over the fear of flying. But at the same time, many people will need that, but also perhaps here's the family members around them that are looking for that validation that, oh, wait, he actually is pretty good at this and this is going somewhere. What were those steps then of actually deciding to, let's say, hang up the shingle and start actually working with people?
Yeah, the main shift for me, so I started officially like doing advertisements and as a business, not only for family and friends, like at the beginning of last year, so beginning of 18. And the next big shift, so it felt quite, it feels uncomfortable to go out there and put your name out there, because you will have those thoughts creeping into your mind. What will my friends think? But the cool thing is, as soon as you make that step, those thoughts just disappear, because they were just dead thoughts, and like going probably Jürgen Rasmussen style here a little bit. But and the next big shift, like I'm not sure if I talked with Chris about that when I did the interview with him and for the academy. What shifted me like a lot at the beginning of this year was when my father passed away. So he passed away on New Year's Eve. So I made all kinds of plans for this year, for 2019, and want to do other stuff with my business. And that totally just put the brakes on all of that completely. The good thing being a hypnotist is like you obviously have a few very good friends who you can text in that regard. And I text like 5 to 10 people immediately, and they all made their schedule free. And so after I worked through the first few weeks of that really strong grieving process, at some point in February, my birthday is at the beginning of February as well, so that was a downer again. And then at some point in the middle of February, one quote hit my Facebook feed or some other kind of social media feed, and it was like, I'm not a big fan of inspirational quotes mostly, but because they are too unspecific, and mostly they never hit. Like you need to hit sometimes the real pain point, and that quote hit with me, because it was like, there are two stages in life where a man can grow up and become an adult. One is when he gets children, and the other one is when he loses his parents. So that really rumored in my brain for like really strongly for a few minutes, and I thought about that for a few days, and then I realized, fuck it. And then I told myself, am I allowed to say the F word here?
But you just did.
And that was such a big mindset shift. And I thought, okay, it totally, that feeling of being the oldest family member now for my kids, like apart from one grandparent on their mother's side, And that was really strong. And then I just went all ahead into Google Ads, and I thought to myself, okay, I heard a lot of bad stuff about Google Ads and a lot about people wasting money. And then I just went all in there and just want to just figure it out.
Yeah, which I'd share. There's a quote, and I may be getting the sequencing wrong, but it was something that with George Harrison and the Beatles talking about, John Lennon, that as the band broke up, the two of them still stayed in contact with each other. And he goes, ever since the beginning, though, I always had this mindset because we knew each other back, I believe, in school. And John was like a few years ahead of George. And the story was that in most of our adult life, I held on to this belief system that, oh, he's further along than I am because he's slightly older. Where we may have these moments where we don't need to get too much into the details, but here is a moment where I had a whole bunch of family medical things going on, and moments where it takes one little perceptual shift to kind of go, oh, wait, this is a different relationship now in a much more powerful way. And mine was a moment of going, here was something that had to happen, and there was a challenge in terms of it, and being able to just say, look, I can just buy the plane ticket for you. And it was done. And that immediately shifted that relationship. I mean, similar to, let's go back to part of your previous story, which was that here was the client, here was the friend who got rid of the fear of flying. And there came that initial breakthrough to go, oh, I can do this. And even in terms of the personal life and, out of a tragic situation, unfortunately, we'll have those moments of going, oh, wait, I can take that role now on. And if something's going to happen, I'm going to be the one who's going to do something about it.
Yeah.
What was it about the Google ads that drew you in?
There's one side in me, or one part in me, if you want to say so, who always wants to figure out stuff.
Probably demon possession, but keep going.
Yeah, that probably is. Yeah, I mean, Halloween was just last night, so that might be. There's one part in me, I always want to figure things out, and I'm always like, I think the NLP guys have a term for that, like people who are always against something or try to do it the other way. And I heard
somewhere between wanton curiosity and polarity responder, I'd say.
Yeah, that might be. That might be. And I always thought, if I can't figure that stuff out with my statistics background, my IT background, and the marketing knowledge I've accumulated so far, if I can't figure out Google Ads, who would figure out them? And then I just dived into it. And yeah, it was actually not that hard. And I shared a lot of my stuff in your Facebook group as well, and in the one from Mike Mandel. And like the responses were, so for example, there's this one number that every business owner needs to know is how much does it cost to acquire a new customer, and how much can you spend for a new customer? Like, it's basically two numbers, but the one should be lower than the other, obviously. Otherwise you will go broke. And there weren't any numbers. I couldn't really find numbers for that, like via Google search. And then I thought, I figure it out. It shouldn't be that hard. And then I shared those experiences.
Which, just to pause for those that aren't familiar with this idea, I give a specific example that, back when I was in stage hypnosis and I was working primarily with high schools, and this is how out of date the story is, I was using postcard marketing, so at the time it was like 26 cents US to send a postcard. And I was spending thousands of dollars in terms of postage every year, tens of thousands of dollars. But at the end of the year, I had generated about $175,000. So I could run the math to figure out every time I booked a program, it cost me about $160. Yet the payoff was about $1,200. And even though I've kind of lost the interest in gambling after one significant win, if you found a table that you put down 160 and you took off 1,200, you wouldn't leave that. And I say this in a world which, let me call out a slight negative. I had local hypnotist at one point that, in a very arrogant way responded to me going, oh yeah, we see your ads all the time. We don't pay for advertising. And yet their ads are constantly showing on my local feed. Yeah, I know, right? If you can't beat them, join them is, I guess, what became the strategy. And I'll toggle it on and off. But that willingness to put money in, I'll get, when I do Facebook marketing, I'll sometimes get a call from Facebook and they actually say, hey, this campaign we can probably optimize better. You're spending about $120 per what we call conversion, but that it cost me $120 for someone to buy. And I'm responding again, yeah, but they purchased a $1,500 thing.
Yes.
This is working. I mean, if you can find a better way, and this is as targeted as I can possibly get, do you know a better audience I can go after? But that willingness to spend that $1,200, that $120 to get the $1,500, let's round it off. Let's say it's about $1,350. every time that machine works. So this is a good thing. It's only bad if we're not running it properly and it's not actually producing those people.
Exactly. And
Let's start with the away from. Were there certain lessons you learned the hard way, places where you were ending up wasting money and not actually getting people when you were starting that out?
Yeah, there was one thing I tested out, which I thought, let's make a video. I just put a video on the landing page that was converting, and it was converting well for my Stop Smoking Hypnosis stuff. And I thought, I just do a 3-minute off the cuff video, and I made a few one takers. And when I thought that one taker is good, I just put it on the top of the landing page. And I probably could have stopped it after spending 500 euros on advertising spend on it, but I let it run for another 500. But deep down inside of me, I knew it. After 500, it was already crap.
Yeah, the dangerous marketing game of let me try to dig out of this hole.
Yeah, that might be. And then I just took the video off, and it just magic. It worked again.
Mm-hmm.
And
which, just to unpack it, you're driving them to basically an opt-in page to then get into a system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So rather than trying to, and this is the biggest mistake that people make, rather than just pay for the traffic and send them to a homepage.
No, you're
sending them to something specific that's after what they're looking for.
Exactly. Actually, I'm sending them directly to the service page that you can find via my normal browser as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just the top of the service page is normally like immediately headline, which just says basically the title, like Stop Smoking Hypnosis, then a subheadline which tells them a little bit in a few short words about the process, like stop smoking fast and efficiently and all of that kind of stuff. Then there are a few benefits, and then there's normally a few bullet points, which there's still stuff I could optimize probably. But
well, I mean, you do reach a place where you kind of go, well, it's working at the capacity that I want it to be right now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I want to mind read that moment that you talked about. And this is not necessarily a mind read of you, but it's a mind read of the audience, that they were clicking from an ad on Google and they were going to a page which had a 3-minute video. And typically, not just my advice, the more money I spend in terms of training in the info marketing world, the more everyone says, shoot videos and tell stories. That is the rapport strategy. But to look at the mindset of the person coming from Google, where they're browsing, it's a different experience if they're coming from Facebook. Think about what are people doing when they're searching. We can kind of mind read this for a moment to go, if they're on Google, they're searching for options. So like yesterday, there was a feature of an app that I wanted to turn off, and I'm searching, how do I turn off this feature? And I just click the first 5 things and I browse through them and I find what I'm looking for, as opposed to I'm scrolling through Facebook and I'm wanting to be more social in that respect. And in that one, if I see some video, I'm going to kind of tune off unless it's someone that I know, or the polite interaction this morning where someone I don't know sends me some random forward by Facebook Messenger, and I respond politely to go, hey, just a friendly note, please don't include me on forwards. However, it'd be nice to hear from you personally, rather than just send me the crap you send everyone else. As opposed to YouTube, I'm looking for a tutorial, So consider the mindset of where they're coming from. Maybe on the thank you page, have the video,
Yeah. Or just put it way below. Like if you send them to the service page, and I just talked about that with another hypnosis friend in Germany, like when he pointed me to Hotjar, which is like a tool where you can see how far down people scroll and where they click. And most people just look at really at the top, and the people who scroll like a certain amount of the page, they mostly scroll through the whole page. So for those people who are looking for information, I will test that out soon and just put a video a little bit below that, because they might click on the video and think, yeah, that's interesting.
And I mean, here's a leading question, and you're going to realize where I'm going as I ask it, which is that clearly you're putting up a general I work with all issues type ad, correct? Or you're going laser specific with your messaging.
No, I have specific ad campaigns.
Yeah.
I have specific ad campaigns. I have one since about a month. I'm working. I found by pure chance from a Facebook group about Google Ad strategy. I found a German freelancer, and his hourly rates were just too good for his skill level. And I thought, and then I just called him, and he said, no, that's just how I'm working with people. And so he charges 300 euros per month, basically, for the kind of ad budget I'm spending. And I thought, but what's your setup fee? And no, I don't have any. And he's really good. And he just put up like a specific kind of campaign for me, which is like a dynamic search campaign, but only with a small budget. So it just basically fills it's sometimes Google just brings it out, but I haven't fully dived into that. But I don't really want to anymore. I know enough about Google Ads now to outsource it. And that's what I recommend to everybody. Don't outsource it directly. Just figure it out at first.
Well, this is kind of the pattern. And as much as I'm the outsourcing guy and, looking at how there's so many different virtual people who perform different tasks. I mean, just this morning, as much as even when I put like content inside of the hypnosis training library workers, we get all that stuff transcribed. And I use SpeechPad for the transcription, but then it goes to this woman named Erica, and she's the one who then goes in and takes the transcription and formats it for the way that we want it to look. So it has all the branding and it looks nice and it has all the appropriate links. And this way it's a nice deliverable rather than just the raw transcription. As much as we outsource, there is the truth that if you don't know what you need, they're not going to give it to you. I think back to, and this is not a jab at a friend, but years ago when Richard Nongard was doing websites for people, I had some of my students who I had referred to him, which he's not in that game anymore. But when he was, I'd refer my students over because he and his partner were building some great websites. And the complaints were, yeah, but he didn't put any videos on my website. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't shoot them. Well, as much as you talk about opt-in offers, he didn't put any on my website. Yeah, because you didn't ask for it. That these people are not mind readers. Here's a friend who hired a housekeeper and was griping about how clothes are being put in the wrong closet and the dishwasher isn't being run appropriately. I'm like, did you explain how you want things done? As opposed to when Michelle was going through surgeries, we hired someone temporarily and just for me to go, yeah, when you hang the shirts up, can you button them? Because that makes it so they don't get wrinkled. Oh, and this shirt's mine. And don't put the dishwasher scrub brush in the dishwasher because it fills up with soap and then floods our house. They're not going to give you unless you what you ask for. Which again, the main thing is that what you talked about, going in very focused. Now, I know you've picked a bit of a specialty of working with people for stop smoking, right?
Yeah, I actually started at the beginning of this year with stopping smoking. Also, one reason for that was, if all the people say stop smoking is so hard, let's do stop smoking.
Yeah. That's the coolest thing that I love about this is that it's often positioned as like the bread and butter, and it can be extremely easy, but unless we're actually hitting some of those right points, talk about it's a binary change. There's proof. You could have worked with that friend for fear of flying, and he could have gone from terrified and having to drink himself to oblivion to, well, I got through it. That was much better. As an incremental change, as in it was only 20% of what it was. But with the stop smoking, I've only had one client and, going on 14 years working with clients total, where the person's goal wasn't to quit. He was diagnosed and referred obsessive compulsive disorder. And even he's going, yeah, even I could accept that 3 packs a day is excessive. I think I'd be better off going from 60 cigarettes down to like maybe, 5 or 10. Which no, he didn't quit at the time because that wasn't his goal. Yet clearly 5 or 10 was going to be better than 60.
Yeah. I have that sometimes I had a client who wanted to stop smoking. He started smoking a lot of tobacco because he started to take medical, what's it called? Medical, is it marijuana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because his doctor prescribed it, and then he started smoking those small sticks that they can buy, and he started to smoke with tobacco, and he just wanted to get off the tobacco. And so that was a little bit challenging, but I mean, that's the interesting part. As long as the people are motivated to change, like, it's not, challenge is fun, like if they really want to change, like, and I think that's the hardest part, especially about smokers, is like filtering out the people who don't want to change, like in your intake call.
Yeah. How do you go about doing that?
One thing probably is the price. And the other thing is, I always ask them a little bit, like in that case, I always use the instant influence method when I'm not sure if they really want to quit, where it's basically, there's one set of questions, which in the instant influence book is asked. And so there are 6 questions, but I always ask, on a scale from 0 to 10, how motivated are you for change? And most people say, yeah, 10. And then I always ask them, okay, 10. Why didn't you pick a lower number?
Yeah.
And like the people who then are making excuses, and they're just going around the problem. They are normally not that motivated. Yeah, it's hard to describe, but you'll get the feeling after a while.
I'll tell you what I'm doing right now is I'm pulling up the notes of a conversation I had with someone that he is booking It's a matter of there's a family member who said, oh, I'll pay half. And I'm like, well, the easiest thing is you just sign up for the program online and then you sort out the reimbursement from the friend, which I've had this scenario. But you're right that, and we'll link to that specific book in the show notes as well. My strategy has been by asking extremely specific pointed questions, as in, clearly you've talked about health, you've talked about family members, you mentioned the advice of your doctor, but let's fast forward the story, and I'm future pacing the heck out of them in this dialogue. It's a year from now, and this has been long gone. It's not the game of you stop for a month, you're at the 1 year mark. What's going to be different there? And I'm asking these long-term questions. And then the real hit is to say, okay, just so I have the information to better help you. There's the frame. It's a month from we've worked together and you've stopped smoking. How are you going to know it's different than the time before where you went back to it? And the ones that I want to work with are the ones that can answer that question right away, as opposed to the ones who are then, the external blame of, not external, credit. Oh, for my family, for this, and it's where the more I can get them around to just, what, I've been doing it for all these years and I'm just tired of it. It's just not worth it anymore. But you're right. That's a great strategy of getting the number and then unpacking it from there. I do the same thing about it. And I frame it as I always ask this to everybody, what makes it a 10 rather than a 9? And even if they say a lower number, I crack the joke. And this is a slight, polite lie. 9. Good. No one says 10. And even if they do, I don't believe it. What makes it a 9 rather than a 10? And this opens up the dialogue too that, well, I still kind of enjoy it sometimes. It's like, well, yeah, you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't. And this is about to become a process of satisfying that need in a much better way. Makes sense? Yeah. What would that be for you? So just unpacking, chunking up, chunking down. You mentioned price point being a eliminator. And I know that's something that you've commented in my Facebook group and others as well. What are some of your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is don't charge. So for stop smoking, if somebody wants to start out, I tell everybody just charge 500 or 600 euros, just as the minimum price.
And for conversions rates, US to euros is almost about in line. I think the euro,
it's almost similar.
It's almost a 1-to-1 right now, as opposed to like British pounds or Australian. Euros are almost exactly lined up right now.
Yeah. Because that's a good number. Because that's what most smokers smoke up in 2 months anyway, like value of cigarettes. And if you name that number and they don't really want to quit, then then they don't want to quit. That's so basically what. And some people might think, but what if that's too expensive for people? Yeah, that's good. You don't, because those people don't want to change. I mean, it's an easy calculation that even they can do without you telling them to. So that's a marketing principle I had to learn as well, and that's probably one of the most important. Is like disqualifying people. Like you want some people are not the right fit for you to work with.
You want to spend, because I know you use the strategy too of having people schedule time to talk to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So from that, you really want to spend your time with those people who are motivated to actually have that conversation. And I would say it's not even a matter of the expense. It's a matter of that's a person who is looking at the bigger picture. There's a difference between it'd be nice to stop it, or look at any change. It'd be good if I could speak more confidently at work. It'd be nice if I was more comfortable giving presentations. But for that person realizing the real benefit that they can create, hey, if I get over this thing, I can more likely get that promotion at work. And they're willing to make that investment into ourselves, which, similar to your story, it began with reading books. And then it moved over to, let me go to this Richard Bandler event. Let me fly over to Canada to hang out with Mike and Chris. Let me, pour money into my business to make something happen, because you can zoom out and see that perspective as to here's what's possible, but I need to be the one to make it happen.
Exactly. It's always you that is in charge. And you always have to push out out of your comfort zone there. And the best thing that happened to me was like another comfort zone push. I was at a live marketing event about a month ago. It was like more than 1,300 euros for a 1-day event. The good thing about that is every other person in that room paid that same kind of money. So they all are willing to invest in themselves. I got the money back immediately on that day from 2 people who want to work with me.
Nice.
And I got a few other contacts. And the one of the persons who want to work with me on just a behavior change issue. So we had a call like a few days ago. They are like, he's like a sales guy. They have like a sales startup. They do like high ticket sales closing for people who don't want to do it themselves in Germany. And so we worked together, and just in the intake banter at the first 2-3 minutes, he mentioned something that they just had like a problem in their business. And the hypnotist and me just asked a question into that. And what came out of that was like, they had like, they were stuck, like they were in their comfort zone bubble. They had everything they needed.
Right,
they were like, every month was between 10 and 20K of revenue, but they want more, and they could do more. They knew they had the time, and they were. And so I went into that, and I really enjoy like pushing people's pain points, like when they are not if somebody is like going through grief or something that. But in a lot of situations, I'm like I'm not a big fan of the like I mentioned before, like the inspirational quotes and like all the positive thinking, psychology, mindset, and make a vision board. All of that is good and has its place. But sometimes you are in a state of comfort, and I always make like this comparison with my hands when I'm on the video, where I make like a scale, and then I put them. You have some, and then I tell them sometimes it's pain or more versus more pain. If you are in a state of comfort and you don't feel enough pain yet to overcome that stage to go through the next level where you want to go, like they want to go in a few months to 100K revenue, where they say, we can easily do that, but they're just stuck in that state. That basically just took half an hour to resolve that.
Yeah.
And after half an hour, they were both and if you are a hypnotist and you work long enough with people, you see their state change and like the body language. So, and you could see it in their face, and they were like, yeah, wow. And I just had a checkup call with them yesterday evening, and they were like still on progress. And they said, yeah, we did another 2K this evening just by looking at their smartphone, and the next days were planned out. And so, yeah, obviously they will. Yeah, so then they now made, so then they now want to double the last month's revenue in the next month. Obviously they will get there, because I will not let them fail.
Yeah.
because that's another thing there, because I obviously, if they achieve that success, and then you as a hypnotist are part in that, and then you can still, and that's another thing. If a client had success, just call them again after a while and ask them if there's another thing they want to work on.
Right.
If those people double their revenue, they want to double it again. I mean, obviously I can ask them what kind of other help they need, and that's the easiest client acquisition there is. Just call an old client who was really happy with you and just help them. It's easy.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many opportunities that are out there, and you bring up something great, which is that, as much as, we can be thrilled with the one session wonder, as much as we can be thrilled with the person who resolved this issue, and I share a strategy of mine for this, as much as we can be happy with the person who changed their life in a matter of like 2 or 3 meetings. If you position the problem as no longer being the problem, but instead the first step of a much bigger journey, this is where there's a natural continuation. And it's not really just for the mindset of, oh, cool, I can book more appointments. It's for that intention of, we can better serve that person. I've got a longer story that I'll shorten, which was that here was a woman, she quit smoking with me. She's at a dog park, and this guy looks at her and goes, "You used to bother me. What's different about you?" And that was his version of an opening line. And she responds, "I quit smoking." They get to talking, and now they're married. True story. And here it is, like, 8, 9 years later. And it wasn't that she was overweight or out of shape, but she wasn't really a fit person. He was a runner. She got into the running with him. They eventually left their corporate jobs that they hated to open up a running store and fund all these nonprofit educational programs that were in poor school areas where they were cutting the extracurriculars. Which you look at where she is now, of this person of fitness, this advocate for health, and you look all the way back to the old story. And I'll tell this when people ask me, what if I backslide? I'm like, well, really, this is a change on the level of identity, not just getting rid of a single habit and leaving everything else in place. This is a continuation of who you are. And I love what you mentioned there. This is what I've been doing for years, of surround yourself with people who are on the same level. Going to that one day event, everybody in that room had already self-identified that they were willing to spend money to improve themselves, which
Yeah.
I'm assuming you were also going there for the education that was being provided, but at the same
Yeah,
time, the
sure. Yeah.
networking of the environment around you. This is what made me thrive in the networking communities, because these were people who were willing to spend money on themselves. And it wasn't just the membership that I was seeing, because it was also their connections, their networks too.
Mhm.
And to be around people, this is something we talked about in the episode last week, the 10 years professional hypnosis, to look at, here's a community of people who want to also do something, and breaking out of that comfort bubble zone that just because it's working doesn't mean that's where we should stop. We can have moments where we stop things and just kind of level out and go, this is good for now. I have a major project that I put off for about 5 or 6 months just because so many things were going on. And because
Mhm.
I invented the deadline, it's okay,
Yes.
and still holding myself accountable for the next phase of it. So I love this aspect. If you had to go back and look at the startup phases compared to where you are nowadays, what would you maybe have done differently or maybe finessed in a slightly better way?
Yeah, like I said, I would have gotten way more testimonials way earlier, and just asking people for it. Because if people are happy with your work, there is a truth in saying that if you know you can help people, you have to go out there and help them.
Mhm.
It really is, and it's not a bad thing to make money for this as well, or to ask for referrals, or to ask for a recommendation or review. That would be so easy. Just going through like this year, I didn't do any health fairs. I want to do a few health fairs again next year, just because I like it. Just getting a few people together. Hypnosis is always so cool. Just hypnotizing people, a few at the same time. Just doing a few magnetic finger inductions with them, and you figure out who can go deep, and then other people will stay around that. And yeah, so that's definitely something I would do again.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com, we're going to link over to your business website, Seven Mountain Hypnosis, which is actually, pronounce that in German for me so I know I'm saying it right.
My business is called Siebengebirgshypnose.
So we'll link to that directly, and I'd encourage you use Google Chrome for those that don't speak German, because it automatically will translate that for you. Other than the website, how can people get in contact with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook still. Sometimes on some days I'm thinking about, oh, should I quit or should I not? But
It only
but
counts
I'm,
if you go online and you do the big public announcement, everybody, I'm leaving Facebook,
yes,
and then you pop up
exactly.
3 days later, because that's what people do.
I will leave this group now, because it's I can't stand how you behave, or then just stay on there for the discussion. Yeah. So the interview I mentioned a few times with Chris Thompson from the Mike Mender Hypnosis Academy. If you want to get that, I will put in an opt-in form on. So I will give the link to you, Jason. It's just reneklein.com,
Mhm.
which I will have published by the time of this airing. So you can get the interview for free, which is normally for
Nice.
Chris allowed me to share that.
Yeah, that's a great
And
conversation.
so don't sign up if you want to have inspirational quotes with me. and also if you want to have basic marketing advice, go to Jason, which is what I would tell you anyway. Yeah. So my main issue will shift more and more towards people who are stuck and being too comfortable and want to get out of that. That's something I really enjoy working with more and more. And so if you fall in that regard and want some kind of inspirational ass kicking, then probably it makes sense to sign up. Or if you just want a free interview, and then just unsubscribe.
There you go. Before we wrap things up, any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
I probably should have thought about that before.
This is where we're forcing you to give the inspirational quote.
Okay, the inspirational quote. No, honestly, just the hardest part is the first step of going out there and going public. And that is if you are in a community of hypnotists, it shouldn't be too hard to find a hypnosis friend who can help you with that kind of issue. So going out there. If you know you can do it, go out there and help people.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, for sharing it on your social media streams, and leaving your reviews online too. And again, check out René's websites and his offer that he made to you over at the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com. And in terms of your hypnotic business, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Model what actually works by heading over to hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. It delivers to you as everything all at once. You can go through it in a linear format, or every individual business module stands on its own. So it becomes a bit of that Netflix choose your own adventure library of creating a thriving hypnotic business. Check that out, hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. See you on the inside.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.